Welcome to the Talk Sox podcast. I'm Alex, and as always, I'm here with my friends Maddie and Adam. What's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going.
Doing well.
Doesn't even read as believable. Yeah.
No. Maddie's under the weather and powering through. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, she's not even on camera today.
But under the weather, there's only like one thing that can really cheer you up, and that's Saturday doubleheader. So at least if you're sick, you can hang out on the couch and watch 6 hours of baseball.
Man, that was nice.
I was
the first 3 hours were fun,
but yeah, it was fun to watch on my phone while I was out and about.
It was both of those games were good games. I mean, obviously they split the doubleheader, so not the ideal outcome, but after this weekend you really felt like the Red Sox are sort of turning things around.
That's what I was just about to say, and I almost posted that in our Slack channel after Sunday. Like, this really feels maybe like the turning point of the season. We had kind of joked that the White Sox series, the home White Sox series, would be like the elusive, super important April series. But I think that it was really the series with the Guardians. They are the AL Central is marshmallow, as I like to say. But realistically, they're the only team that I think is going to come out of the AL Central. The Royals don't have an outfield that can field the ball cleanly, and although we know a little something about that, I think what Bobby Witt Jr. Is the only one on the team with like a positive WAR right now. I don't think that's the correct stat. Hold on, let me say the right thing. But it's very close to that.
We'll call that hyperbole. That was hyperbole, and now we'll get the actual answer.
Let me do some finding very quickly.
I mean, I will say, as far as the Central goes, Detroit is currently in first place, and I think with Skubal and Torkelson kind of having a little bit of a turnaround season, they might end up being the class of the division. But I agree. I think it's, Cleveland is considered an organization that is very good. So, Maddie, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I just saw Cleveland lost 11-1 today to the Twins, which is saying something because the Twins offense, I mean, the Twins and offense in the same sentence kind of doesn't go together.
Yeah.
But I think the Red Sox broke Cleveland, especially after that Duran incident.
Yeah, it was I mean, Cleveland had a rough series as far as like fielding the ball goes. Like their fielding made the
Red
Sox
some of the worst defense I've ever seen.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's sort of supposed to be one of their strengths. So the idea that all sort of fell apart during the Red Sox series, and you could watch it happening, like the first game, they were pretty good defensively. Second game got a little bit worse. And then the third game was just kind of abysmal.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Maybe that'll be the turnaround for Cleveland season 2. Who knows?
Well, and they just DFA'd Tristan McKenzie, which I think, he's been awful. And I say it happened a day or two ago.
Yeah.
To be honest, I know this isn't on like the rundown over on the side. Like, I wouldn't hate if he does fall in the waiver order to the Red Sox. Like, I think that's a decent shot at a reclamation project. The Guardians are a pitching factory, or they have been in recent. So for them to cut bait with him is, I think, telling. But he's one of those guys. He's 2 seasons removed from an all-star season. And at one point, like, he was kind of the up and coming pitcher in the league. Like,
yeah, he definitely was. He was.
If he somehow makes it through the waiver process, like, I would not hate bringing him in and letting him kind of try to figure it out in Worcester. Maddie, you've raised your hand in the chat.
That was earlier, but with these reclamation project pitchers, I know Giolito's on our bullet point list. If we're a serious team, I don't think we should keep, going after these guys.
I don't hate it if he's in AAA.
Okay, that's fair.
That's where I'm at with it. Like, I don't want to see him on the major league roster, but if he's in AAA and trying to figure things out down there, I'm okay with that. That's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, so you're not on the bring Rich Hill back for a ninth stint with the Red Sox.
I mean, he's got to get a ring. We got to bring him back before September.
He has one of the best nicknames in baseball. I know this is a family-friendly podcast, so I can't say it. But,
correct. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's goated. Also, wait, just looking at Mackenzie's Fangraphs, he doesn't have any minor league options left.
Mm-hmm. I almost think that's why they had to DFA him. They couldn't do anything. So he would have to make it through waivers and then sign a minor league deal.
Okay.
Yeah. But
real quick, I was right, sort of. Bobby Witt Jr. and Maikel Garcia are the only starting roster members of the Royals that do not have a negative F-WAR.
If you had asked me who was the second one to not have a negative F-WAR, I'm not sure Maikel Garcia would have been my guess.
Nope.
Well, that's impressive for him and sad for literally everybody else on that team. But they are right behind Cleveland, a game and a half behind Cleveland for second place in that division. So, as you said, marshmallow soft division. It will be interesting to watch because at least one of those teams is going to make the playoffs, and it'll be interesting to see who. As far as the rundown goes, we did talk last week about Brayan Bello's imminent return, and then since then we've gotten 2 Bello starts. As the resident huge Bello fan, what did you think about them, Alex?
I'm very encouraged with what I saw. I wrote right before his return, and we talked about it a little bit last week, like during his minor league rehab outings, like he was very unlucky. Be that fielding errors, balls that just kind of fell in the gaps. I think his ERA was inflated because of that stuff. I don't think that he was pitching as poorly as his ERA would make it seem. I mean, he was running an over 31% strikeout rate, which up to this point, it has not been Brayan Bello. He has been a pitch to contact pitcher. I think coming out of that first start, things got a little hairy there in the first inning. And even in the second game, in his second start, during his last inning when he was up against his pitch limit, he did allow another home run. So he's allowed 2 on the season so far. But I think what impressed me more than his strikeout abilities and his, he was pitching to contact, but he was still striking people out, was the way that he conducted himself on the mound, especially in that first start, where he gave up a first inning home run. And last year in April, he would have spiked his glove. It would have been a whole show. And he did that multiple times. He spiked the ball. He spiked the glove. He slammed stuff in the dugout. This year, he seems to have taken that emotion and has figured out a way to channel it into his pitching repertoire. All of his stuff has ticked up this season so far. And he's really turned into he's not hunting for strikeouts, but he is much more comfortable throwing his sinker and his sweeper for strikeout pitches now. Whereas before, if he was getting into 2-strike pitches, while a strikeout would have been fine, he was hanging his sweeper, or he was hanging his sinker a little bit. He was going to a 4-seamer high and tight to righties that didn't really have a whole lot of carry to it. Whereas now he's trusting that sweeper, and it looks like a devastating out pitch. Like I said, even in the second game when he was right up against his pitch count, in fact, I had just made the comment to my wife, like, hey, I'm glad Bayo's back out for the sixth. And then like 2 pitches later, he walks a couple guys and then he gives up a massive home run. But that's also kind of the nature of Brian Bayo. And if we have an offense that's going to be regularly scoring 6-7 runs a game, you can get by with that as your number 3 pitcher. I think that Bayo very easily could push Walker Buehler for the second starter role this season. I like Walker. I think that he's done a phenomenal job, especially after those first 2 kind of rough starts. But, I think that we've seen Walker Buehler's ceiling, and I don't think we've seen Brian Bayo's yet. I think it makes a big difference that his wife and daughter are stateside this season, which if you've watched the Netflix doc, that was a big, big thing that weighed on him all season last season. I think that's partially and probably largely to blame for his struggles. But, having your family here, I think that that's something that's huge for him. And I think that we could realistically look at a potential all-star caliber starter in Brian Bayo. And if that's your number 3 starter on the season, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously 2 games, 11 innings pitched, but 1.45 WHIP and a 3.27 ERA and 2 wins in 2 games. I mean, both old school stats and new school stats say that, he's had 2 pretty successful starts. So, yeah, I think you kind of anticipated my question, which was going to be, where do we see him in kind of the pantheon of Red Sox starters? And I agree. I think right now it's sort of between him and Walker Buehler for, if the playoffs were starting tomorrow kind of thing, who pitches game 2. Because, both of them have been pitching well, but obviously Bayo has not had any, starts quite as bad as Buehler's worst starts. So I have to just see how it keeps developing, but so far so good. The other topic that, we are going to bring up is Lucas Giolito coming back. By this time next week, we will have had at least 1 Giolito start. He's going to be pitching, it looks like, Wednesday of this week.
Yeah.
So I asked the question, what do we expect of Bayo? What do we expect of Giolito?
Do you have his minor league numbers up?
I do. Are you excited to hear them? Because
yeah, I want you to tell them out loud into the microphone for the world to hear.
Okay. So I will say I'm a little surprised because I know that the number that I've heard the most about has been in Portland. His ERA was 7.71.
Mm-hmm.
But in AAA at Worcester, his ERA is actually 3.48. So overall, his minor league numbers for this year, both levels, would be 5.19 ERA. And that's over 17 and a third innings.
It's better than 10.
So, all right. Hawk out here catching strays, I see.
It's local.
Yeah,
I can do
that. So, I mean, not great numbers, but, as we had talked about last week, Bayo's numbers were not great in AAA either. Mm-hmm. Do we think that Giolito will have a Bayo-sized impact on the rotation coming back, or
I want to pull something up. But while I'm pulling this up, the thing that worries me more than anything else with Giolito is his walks. Mm-hmm. He's had 13 combined in his starts during this.
Right. So almost as many walks as innings pitched, right?
Yeah. And he's still outpacing with strikeouts. He's got 17, if I'm remembering correctly.
17 strikeouts. Yeah.
So he's still throwing more strikeouts than walks, but just barely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he is averaging a strikeout per inning, and he's thrown 17.1 innings, so 13 walks, so a little bit less. Okay. So you're talking about 1.31 strikeout to walk ratio, so not amazing. Maddie, you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, TJ Stats posted, one of his report cards after Giolito's outing in Worcester, and his fastball's clocking in at 92.4 miles per hour. So, I mean, that's a little concerning.
Yeah.
I mean, it should at least be 95 if he's going to be facing major league hitters.
If he's going to be starting.
Yeah, and starting too.
I like Maddie's cough exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other reason to not be amazingly hopeful is that, we haven't seen Giolito pitch in so long. Like, at least Bayo had pitched last season.
Yeah.
So you had, so you knew that he wasn't going to be super rusty coming back, but Giolito not having pitched in, well over a year and having these kind of numbers in AA and AAA does kind of make you question how successful he'll be.
So what I wanted to look at, and I do this a lot for like my articles where I'm doing pitcher analysis. I want to look at his total pitches so far in the minor leagues, and I'm on Baseball Savant, in their minor league search option. Shout out to Davey Andrews, who taught me how to use everything on Baseball Savant. He's phenomenal, super helpful. So Giolito has thrown 200 pitches in his minor league rehab starts. His batting average against is currently sitting at 200, which I think is crazy based on what we've heard. His expected is 220. His OBP is sitting at 370. His expected is 386. His slugging is sitting at 343, and his expected is 365. And his WOBA is 328, and his expected is 343. So he's fairly consistent with the expected outcomes of his pitches. But what worries me is his average exit velocity on the season so far is 93.4 miles an hour. And he is getting hard hit 55.6% of the time. Those numbers scare me a little bit because that's minor leaguers that are barreling him up that well. And I mean, there's other players who are on rehab assignments, other major leaguers that are down there. But I think it's incredibly interesting that his stats and his expected stats are not far off from each other, but he's getting hit hard when they're making contact.
Mm-hmm.
And that coming into the majors, like, he says he's ready. AC says he's ready. I just don't think he's ready. And I mean, they know more than I do. I trust them more than myself in that position, but Wednesday is going to be a shaky night, I'm afraid. Luckily, it's in a dome. They're playing at the Rogers Center. So he's not having to deal with weather factors or anything like that. But that is one that I'm definitely, I mean, it's rare that I miss a game in general, even if it's just watching through the game day breakdowns. But that's one that I will be watching 100% because I'm very curious to see. And I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not confident in that start.
And, of course, it's going to be against your favorite player, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Bo Bichette?
Yep, Bo Bichette and his illustrious hair.
Is Alex secretly the Stan account for Bichette?
Yes.
I mean, shout out to Mo Bichette and shout out to Gold's Gym in Boston. I mean, we get to hear about the story basically every time he visits Boston. But parents met right across the street from Fenway when Dante Bichette was playing for the Red Sox. So Always have a little soft spot for Bo, at least. So that's Giolito coming back. What do we think about the rotation in general? It's been a week since the last podcast, and what do we think? Is Giolito's return like? Is that going to be? I mean, no matter what we expect of him, are we happy we have another starter in the fold, or?
So we're now in 6-man rotation territory, correct? At least by the numbers.
I mean, the fact that we did see Newcomb come out of the bullpen.
I'm sorry, who?
Who? He only goes by one name on this podcast.
I will still be calling him Sean Newcomb if you want to jump in.
New bump.
If you want to jump in, Maddie, and say his nickname every time, that's fine. I harbor no ill will against him, especially because he out of the bullpen was actually pretty good. So I'm throwing a little bit harder. You're shaking your head. No?
Now his arm's going to implode. That's what happens. If we're mean to people, they do well. If we're nice to people, they blow up.
Okay. Well, I don't know about that because would you rather have Newcomb or Winkowski at this point?
It's two sides of the same coin. I feel like they just sit in the locker room and listen to Creed on their AirPods together.
Burn. No, I think that
I would rather have Sean Newcomb. I would.
But I was going to say, you've been mean to Winkowski all season, and that hasn't really helped.
And now
his
he's
performances very much
where he belongs.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think we have that much power to influence these guys. Because if so, Winkowski would be a starter in our rotation by now with how you've talked about him. But so I think obviously Newcomb is the one who's going to be out of the rotation. And then what's the next rotation move? You think we're going to go?
I think that no. And he's going to have a longer leash than maybe he needs. I think that there's a conversation to send Tanner Houck to the bullpen at some point. And I've talked about it before. Houck has the makings of a closer in the major leagues. His pitch mix plays well. His arm slot is deceptive. And you really see it in 1 inning bursts this season. He gave up 4 runs in the first in his last start and then settled in through the 5th. But you always see one dominant inning from him this season. And not that I'm not advocating for Tanner Houck to close. If that's the situation, he's got to go to the pen and he's got to earn it, and he's got to prove that that's something that he can do. I don't think it's crazy to see Lucas Giolito in the pen. Not right now, obviously. He is a veteran. He's a veteran presence in the clubhouse, and he's respected. But I think that Giolito is very much what the team needs me to do, I'll do. The other side to that is this is technically a contract year for him, and he hopes to play more baseball past 2025. And so him moving to the pen is probably not in his best financial interest. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if he would accept that super well. We saw that play out with Nick Pivetta last season with his whole "I'm a starter" comments. But he shined in the pen, and now
I was going to say Pivetta
in San Diego.
Pivetta was great out of the bullpen, so he didn't do himself any favors saying that he's a starter and then pitching that well out of the bullpen. I could see. I guess I could see the argument for either one of those guys. But we're pretty sure. Obviously, Crochet is not going there. Bayo is not going there.
Bueller's definitely not.
Yeah, Bueller's not. So it's really it's got to be one of them. And I do wonder Houck's performance in this past game. He was very good after that first inning. That first inning was painful to watch. You know, I really was like, I don't know if he's going to get out of this inning. And, you know, settling great. If we see that out of him, if he can build off of, you know, the 4 innings that he ended with last time, then, you know, there's going to be some conversations to be had there.
Yeah,
but I agree. He when he first came up, I think there was a lot of talk about will he be, you know, a closer type reliever or will he be a starting pitcher? And I honestly thought, I mean, this shows me, but I thought it would be Whitlock would be the better starter and Houck would be the better reliever. And
I don't think that wasn't a crazy belief.
Yeah, and obviously it hasn't happened for Whitlock. And Houck was actually a very good starter last year. So it's sort of it'll be interesting to see what the Red Sox do, because I think that there's a chance that, you know, one of these guys ends up being trade bait, because you know, if we're going to have 6 healthy starting pitchers, I don't think you can make that last for too long and have people be happy about it. So
no, and I mean, realistically, Richard Fitz is coming back at some point. Alex Cora said that he avoided the worst, which is great. And I mean, pec injuries for a pitcher, especially on your pitching side, are tough. But he will be back in the fold at some point. Cutter Crawford is throwing down in Fort Myers right now. I don't trust knee injuries at all. I'm not confident that Cutter Crawford will pitch a meaningful inning this year. I am, and we talked about this a little bit last week. I am concerned that there is some structural something going on with Houck. When he throws his sweeper, there is no snap to it. Starting the season, the pitch was down. The pitch lost almost 3 inches of break from last season. Now he's gained about a ½ inch back. So it's closer to losing 2 inches of break, but it's still sitting right on like the heart and zone of the plate, and it's not breaking off the plate. He can't backdoor it anymore. And to me, that screams elbow issue. If he can't snap the ball out of his hand like that, there's something going on in his arm that's not allowing him to, or he's made a conscious decision to not do that. Both things concern me.
Yeah.
I like Tanner Houck a lot. I think that, unfortunately, as it looks right now, the first half of last season was an anomaly. Because the second half of last season was much closer to what we've seen in the past, and that has continued into this season. Now, I will say the one thing that was encouraging at this start is during that first inning when he gave up those 4 runs, he was being very fastball dominant to the point that even the Guardians broadcast was like, we don't understand what's happening with Tanner Houck. Like, they are obviously sitting on this fastball. Why is he still throwing it? And then coming into the second inning, he went back to the first part of last year's lead pitch mix, which was his sinker and sweeper. And even if the sweeper is not sweeping like it should, if it's playing off a sinker pretty well, which he's good at, then I think that we can see him not be dominant again, not be an all-star caliber starter again, but be a very effective starter again. And that's what he went to in those final 4 innings, and it seemed to work. But I am concerned that there's a structural issue going on in that arm, and that's why we're seeing. I mean, he's throwing harder, which doesn't make sense. Typically, when you've got something going on in your elbow, you lose velocity, but almost 3 inches of run on that sweeper is a lot.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
coming and differently for sure.
Yeah. I agree. There's something there. I do know that, he's a bit of a tinkerer, and so it could just be that he hasn't quite gotten back to what he was doing last year. But I that is something to watch out for, and obviously that is why the Red Sox built in so much pitching depth is
Mhm.
just because injuries are inevitable, especially when you have guys like Bueller, who spent much of last year injured, and Giolito, who did spend all of last year injured.
It's unfortunate that Tommy John is a way of life if you're a pitcher now.
Right.
And we talked about this like off pod, and I talk about it a little bit, but like I do the PA for our local varsity team, and the amount of high schoolers I see that come off the mound that are shaking their arm out. I'm like, man, like, I mean, it's been years since I played, but we never had a pitcher that didn't take a comebacker off the arm, walk off the mound after 3 innings, shaking his arm out. Like they are just throwing so much, so often.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's 30 minutes up the road. Their best pitcher had Tommy John surgery this year. He's a high school kid.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know if it is an overprescription of Tommy John surgery or if we're just much better at recognizing it. But there has been obviously a spike in how many people are getting Tommy John surgery and at the ages that they are getting it. And it's probably for someone much smarter than me to say, but it is something that people, I think, are rightfully concerned about how many
Absolutely.
pitchers are having it. There's no great transition here, but I do want to get to the next thing in our rundown, which is Jarren Duran heating up. As someone who has advocated for the trade of Jarren Duran many times, how are you feeling about this heating up?
It's just increasing that trade value, baby.
Of course. I guess Maddie mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there was an incident in Cleveland that probably we should at least mention, where someone behind the Red Sox bench made some sort of comment about his suicide attempt, and rightfully that person was ejected from the stadium. I think the first base coach, one who first like pegged who said it, and that they had to get him out of there. But Duran had a reaction to it.
Beat the crap out of him if he hadn't been held back. Like that dude should have been scared.
Yeah. And I mean, Duran, as we know, lifts quite a bit. So it did not look good for that man. But was it Rafaela was the one who was kind of
that
like,
was like hugging him and like walking him back? Yeah, jump into here, Maddie.
Just my biggest takeaway from this whole incident was this is the reason why men don't openly discuss mental health issues. And the heckler he looked like an older dude, so maybe a boomer. And that generation really was taught to just suppress their feelings. And also I did a little bit of research because well, I'm an astrology girl, so this incident and other incidents too with Duran getting into things with fans. I was curious. So Duran's a Virgo. He was born on, I think, September 5th, and then his Mars sign is a Cancer. So the Virgo sun indicates he's already pretty hypercritical towards himself. We kind of see that in the documentary. And Cancer Mars, the Mars placement indicates how somebody handles conflict. And Cancer's a water sign. It's a crab. They take things personally. So that whole incident just, as we saw, really riled him up.
I thought you were going to mention. I thought maybe he was a Leo with how fiery he gets, but I guess that
I'm
does
so
make
out of my
sense.
element here.
I mean, it seems like maybe you married well then, if you if you do not know astrology. But yeah, it was it was sort of an incident that made me cringe because obviously that is something that I think Duran might have to deal with this season.
And he kind of addressed that in his post game comments. I don't know if you saw those.
I didn't, what did he say?
Hold on, let me get the exact quote.
Okay. I guess, and the other thing that I'll just say is that, however he reacts to these things, it seems like he will be taking them personally, but you just hope that all the contrition he had after last year's suspension was true and that he, despite being upset, will consider what words he uses to be yelling back at these fans. Because I think Duran, maybe more than any other player that I can remember, has had more like hero villain turns than anyone really. It's sort of incredible that he, when he was having such a good season last season, I think everyone thought it was a feel good story. Then came the suspension. Everyone thought this dude's a villain. Now we have the Netflix documentary back to being kind of a hero,
which does address that situation too. Which I was happy that they did. Real quick, here's his comment. He said something inappropriate. I'm happy that security handled it. Security was aware of it and took care of it for me. And then a little later, he said, when you open yourself up like that, you're also opening yourself up to the enemies. But I have a good support staff around me along with teammates and coaches, which is awesome. And so for him to kind of be aware that's like, yeah, like I was very vulnerable in that moment, and it's going to bring people in, which is what it's done. The amount of support that Duran has gotten since that teaser leaked and then the entire documentary series leaked has been incredible. But for him to be like, you know what, me doing that is going to cause some people to have another issue with me. And I have such a good support system that I can handle that now. Like that's critical. That's critical to his success, not only on the baseball field, but in life. The fact that he now recognizes that he has such a strong support system around him. And I know when, like, a lot of people, when it broke, like that Duran got into it with a fan, they're like, oh my God, not again. And then as things started to come out, things started to make a little more sense. I was actually out of the room when it happened, and I walked back in and they're talking to Jemai, who, from the way that it sounds, heard the entire exchange from the fan. And I've like, Jemai is always like happy go lucky, joking around, and the seriousness in his voice, I was like, oh my gosh, like something big has happened. And then they keep cutting to Duran. And then finally, I think I saw it on Twitter or somewhere where the radio call was like, yeah, like they said that he should have done it when he had the chance, and that's ridiculous and inappropriate. And like, kudos to the Guardians fans in that area that were quick to point that guy out and hold him accountable.
Yeah. I think I saw Will Middlebrooks being the first person who like actually said what the guy had said, but I was listening to the radio broadcast just because I don't love the Red Sox booth in right now for that series. So I was listening to I was watching the game, but had the radio overlay, and they were Will Fleming sort of recognized what was going on there, and kind of said that he thought that what was said. And yeah, having Duran kind of blow up was not the best, although you can understand it based on what was said. But the fact that he managed to not say anything very inflammatory or that would get him in trouble, I think does show some growth. And hopefully we can expect that if we have those kind of issues again, which I think you can almost for certain say that it will come up again, just because fans can be real jerks. So,
especially if you live in Cleveland.
Okay, look, I have some good friends that are from Cleveland, so I will not talk bad about Cleveland for now, although I have in the past. But I will say that the people that I know there are lovely, so I'll leave it at that.
They have a cool art museum and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so there's that.
Yeah. Exactly. And they have a very big Polish population, which for me,
nice.
I love, but I mean, we've seen it before in, New York series where things get yelled at Red Sox players. So it doesn't have to be Cleveland. It can be many other places where fans are going to be well read on Duran's situation and, just be looking for the right situation to yell something at him. So, that's unfortunate, but it's part of the game for him.
Yeah, there was a lot of virtue signaling, online with that, but even Yankees fans were saying like that was a low insult and dig at him.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, hopefully all Yankees fans feel that way. But I think having seen the Mookie Betts and the fans trying to yank the ball forcibly out of his glove thing,
yeah, there would have been people cheering at Yankee Stadium.
There's a chance that not every Yankees fan feels the same way. Now, while we're talking about Duran heating up, we have to revisit our story from last week where we talked about Trevor Story heating up because
Story is not passing the eye test.
Yes. Repost the article. That's what I said. What have you seen from Story this week?
He's not making he's not making hard contact. He's not barreling the ball up at all anymore. I don't know if it's pitchers have kind of figured out that he's swinging at everything out of the zone, and so they're getting him to do that, and they've stopped throwing him strikes. But I think the biggest thing is that when he is making contact, it's weak contact right now. Hopefully, he figures it out. But it's not been a fun week for Trevor Story because really, as soon as the last episode posted is when he went ice cold.
Mm-hmm. And I think, throughout his Red Sox career, obviously he hasn't been on the field that much for his Red Sox career, but throughout it, we have seen that he is a very streaky player. So I don't think it's like a big surprise that, 1 week he's super hot, 1 week he's not, and that can probably reverse just as quickly. I think that in his first season, we saw him have like a prolonged slump. So I think we do have to hope that is not the case here because he was such a big part of the offense. He really carried the offense not this past week, but the week before. So just have to hope that, he gets it back.
We need everybody to get hot at the same time.
I mean, it would be nice, but honestly, we're
winning games in spite of it. But
I think that was, I think we're talking about how this Cleveland series could have been a turning point, and the real reason it could have been a turning point is because it's the first time we've seen so much of the offense clicking at once.
Yeah.
We talked about Duran and we talked about him heating up, but we did not talk about him stealing home, which I think
was incredible.
needs to be talked about at least a little bit. Even if just to say it was incredible, it was. It's not a play that we have seen.
That is baseball at its
Ellsbury,
most
right?
electric.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not a play that we've seen since Ellsbury stole home.
I think technically Duran had a steal of home last season, but it wasn't a clean steal. It was very much like the Romy situation.
I think it was a double steal is what I remember. So yeah, this was the first time that it was just a straight steal, and it was
a clean steal of home. Yes,
and it was after a triple, which is which is like the second most electric thing that you can really do on a baseball field. So it was sort of it was a crazy sequence, and just kind of shows you why everyone is so excited about Jarren Duran, or why so many people were excited about him last season. He has that in him, both things, just fast, ferocious, and you hope to see that it continues, because that was a big part of the offense. The running on the Guardians, it was so talked about how bad the Red Sox catchers have been at catching runners. And, you thought that teams were going to run all over the Red Sox, but in the end, it was the Red Sox that ran all over the Guardians.
Yeah.
It was, it was crazy. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you saw just so many stolen bases, taking extra bases on hits. It was a real clinic by the Red Sox, and something that, we've seen a struggle with base running. We obviously made a huge deal about Connor Wong getting picked off first, earlier in the season, and now to see them running so precisely was really nice.
Yeah, and I wrote a few weeks ago, like right at the start of the season, like speed was going to be one of the things that carries the Red Sox to a successful season. And kind of in Talk Sox podcast fashion, they didn't steal bases for the next week. But it seems like so the offense goes, so the base running goes. Like, when it's really easy to steal bases when you're up 4-0, 4-1, 5-0, 5-1 early in a game. Because even though like it makes sense to try to steal bags when you're down by 3, like from a competitive standpoint, it doesn't make sense to try to steal bags when you're down by 3, because it's an easy out.
Right.
And so, I think that when the offense is clicking like this, we are going to see the Red Sox run, because outside of Devers, Casas, and Narvaez, like everybody on the team can steal bases. And Rafi stole, I think, 2 or 3 bases last year. I think Casas had a couple of swipe bags on the year last year. And so there are situations where, they're going to get sent as well. And I love that has become part of the identity of who the Red Sox are, is it's a focus on speed, and it's even speed with your guys that are hitting the cover off the ball or have the potential to hit the cover off the ball. Story, when he's on base, it more often than not, he's at least going to attempt to steal second, or even just draw the pitcher to peek over twice and then see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, last week when we talked about Trevor Story being hot, we did mention that he led the team in steals at that time. Now after this weekend series, you have Duran up to 9 steals, which now leads the team, and Rafaela and Story are now tied with 6 to be second on the team. And then Abreu has 4 steals. So you're really seeing guys kind of creeping up that list. And Hamilton, we know, could easily lead the team in steals, but hasn't quite gotten that playing time yet. So you see him only having 2 steals right now, but if he manages to get more playing time, that those numbers are going to go up. So
yeah, and I hate to say this, but it's getting to the point where I don't understand why Christian Campbell keeps getting put in the outfield to get David Hamilton reps in the infield. If Campbell is the second baseman of the future, let him play second base. I like David Hamilton. I think that David Hamilton can be an important part of this team, but it's going to be off the bench. It's going to be pinch running, pinch hitting. It's not going to be getting weekly reps at second at the expense of Christian Campbell. I let him play second. Let him learn to hit in the 4, 5, 6 hole. Let him become the player that you want him to become. Quit shuffling him back between second and center field.
And I think that, part of the reason that he's getting shuffled, in addition to getting Hamilton playing time, is that the Red Sox I think they saw Rafaela kind of that be a feather in his cap, him being able to play, the middle infield as well as, an amazing center field. And I think that is kind of what they want from all of their prospects now. It seems like Marcelo Myers does not have that ability, and he is going to be strictly a middle infield kind of guy. So I think that this is almost like cover for them, like in case, if they decide to call Marcelo Myers up, they can have him up and have Campbell still in the lineup, because Campbell might not be tearing the cover off the ball every time, but it seems like he's on base basically every game. He is doing something. Yeah. He's doing something to help the team every game, and it is sort of incredible. Maddie, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, back to Alex's point. When Campbell's playing second base, his batting average is .308, but when he's playing center field, it's .214. So, I mean, just moving him back and forth just once a week is really affecting his offense. Just to get David Hamilton in, who's batting like .040.
Yeah, he's as below the Mendoza line as you can be.
Yeah. So it's also Hamilton's kind of wasting a roster space right now. And I understand his speed, and especially for pinch running late in games, but I don't know. I'm kind of ready for that experiment to be over.
I think we're getting close to it. Yeah.
I mean, and I'm pretty sure that Hamilton still has options, right? So, I mean, he can be optioned to AAA without having to DFA him or anything. Am I right on that?
Yeah, he has 2 left.
Okay.
Perfect. So, yeah. So, I mean, that really segues us right into our last topic, which is still no Roman Anthony. That is looking more and more like that's going to be the trade-off eventually, right? Is David Hamilton going down and Anthony coming up?
Well, there's still a one remaining spot on the 40-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
What after Fulmer was DFA'd?
Yes. Mm-hmm. They have not filled that spot.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that to bring him up, it would have to be 26 Hamilton. Man. Yeah, it would have to be Hamilton going down. Wouldn't have to DFA him, just send him to AAA and bring up Anthony. But I just wonder, like, what is keeping Anthony off this roster right now?
He fouled a ball off his foot Saturday and did not play Sunday. So they seem to be, and he was DHing exclusively because of a shoulder soreness. So I think that they're like handling him with kid gloves because they know that he's next man up. And I'm going to let Maddie take the floor here in just a second, because she's got stuff to say about Roman Anthony and the fact that he is still in AAA. But those are the reasons that they'll give. Is he has had a sore shoulder and then he fouled a ball off his foot. So we're making sure that he is getting right. But I don't think that it's roster manipulation. That's mostly a thing of the past with the new PPI. But I'll hand it over to Maddie, because I'm very curious where Maddie's going with this.
Jen McCaffrey published an article this morning, discussing this issue. Yeah, she's amazing, a queen. But Yeah, Roman has nothing left to prove in AAA at this point. I mean, you said they were, kind of handling him with care after he fouled that ball off his foot and the shoulder injury, but the only thing really blocking him is Rafaela, and he's basically or Jarren Duran. But I mean, Duran's heating up though. I mean, he's the spark plug of the offense. They scored 13 runs when he was, doing his thing.
Yes, that is very true.
And and Rafaela, I like him. That was nice when he was, holding Jarren back during that incident on Sunday. But he's the reincarnation of Jackie Bradley Jr. And if that's who's blocking Roman Anthony, that's a disservice to Roman. And Rafaela does have his moments. He's clutch, when needed. He has a 110 WRC plus with runners in scoring position. And at this point, I think Breslow's holding out for a trade and also letting Rafaela build up his trade value.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
I mean, originally I thought it was going to be Ref Schneider that was kind of holding Anthony back.
I don't think there's any way they get rid of him.
Oh, he's very
Ref Schneider has been amazing. It has been really cool to watch how good Ref Schneider has been. He kind of made mention that this could be his last year playing in the off season. He kind of said he wasn't sure if he was going to continue after this year, but I mean, if he doesn't, he's going out on top because this has to be one of his best seasons.
We got to send him out with a ring. The poppy tree.
I agree. So it's been he's been really impressive to watch, and I agree. I don't think that Ref Schneider is really going anywhere. So it sort of does look like when Anthony comes up, it's going to have to be Rafaela that's ceding the playing time mostly, right?
And I think I'm so torn on this because offensively, yes, that's what makes the most sense. That puts your best offensive lineup on the field. But I think that there is a case to be made where you have somebody who is probably going to be in the conversation for a platinum glove this season in Ceddanne Rafaela. And the alternative is if he gets shipped out is you have to shift Jarren Duran to center field. And I can't confidently sit here and tell you that that's a good idea. With the defensive miscues that he's had this season, some of them coming in center field, I just don't know if that's the right foot forward here. And the Duran trade, it's been a joke, and I legitimately think that that's the plan. It's not happening during the season. There would be a mutiny in Boston if Jarren Duran was traded at the trade deadline, unless the Sox are out of it and you're selling for pieces to rebuild, whatever. That's not the situation, or it shouldn't be the situation. But I've written about it before. This contract extension, and I put that in quotes, is so weird to me. It makes no sense to buy out 2 years of arbitration when you have 3 left and to force him to re-enter arbitration when he's 31, because that's what will happen after the 2026 year, is Duran will go back into the arbitration process. There's not a team on this planet that wants to negotiate an arbitration salary with a 31-year-old center fielder who is now on the decline offensively and defensively. They've got to either renegotiate a contract, which I think is possible, but that deal is so weird to me that I don't see how there's really any other option except eventually shipping Jarren Duran somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right, but like you said,
I got so much crap for that take when it came out.
I mean, I'm sure you did, and I think it needs some explaining to really, people read the headlines and don't necessarily go deep into the
absolutely.
logic of things. But I think it does make sense. But like you said, it's not happening this season, and it's during the season. And so you really
If
have
the
to.
Mariners make Brian Wu available, Jarren Duran will be traded at the deadline. Like that's the situation where, or Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. If any of them become available, yes, Jarren Duran will be shipped out at the deadline for one of them. But that's the only deal that I see. He's not the centerpiece of the Alcantara deal, even though that makes some sense. Him to the Royals makes a lot of sense because they need outfielders and they have pitching. But that's an off-season deal. Maddie, you're raising your virtual hand.
I know most stats indicate, speed is the number one tool that regresses as players get older, but after watching like 4 episodes of the Netflix documentary, and also I ran into Duran's parents at a game in Detroit last year. I didn't speak with them, I just saw them, and
That's cool.
they're pretty fit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he comes from like, a very, health conscious family, and his father's aged pretty well. So, I mean, the, nerds in the front office have, regression models and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't regress, I mean,
At a slower rate.
Yeah, at a slower rate. Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be, Ricky Henderson stealing how many bases at 40 years old or anything, but I do think that there's a chance that, come 31, 32, he's still stealing a good clip, and, hopefully with more seasoning in the majors, he's, hitting as well, if not better.
Yeah,
I do think that there's, some reason to be hopeful for that. And, if that's the case, then I guess they'll get even more for a trade for him. But yeah, I don't think that he's in danger of going anywhere this season. So the outfield for, having Roman Anthony up, it has to be Rafael losing playing time at this point. And so does that make Rafael like a ninth inning defensive sub, essentially? An occasional
that's a waste of his defensive talent. I think that if that's the case, you've got to trade him.
That's also a waste of his contract. $50 million to just
to sit on the bench.
For, one rep in the ninth.
I mean, they're talking about Yoshida's contract. And I know that Rafael's isn't on the same level as Yoshida's contract, but it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other if you're paying them to sit on the bench. It's wasted money.
So do you see Rafael getting sent down maybe this season? He does still have options.
I think it's got to be a trade.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because Roman Anthony, I do think right now, you're right, with the injury concerns, they do have some plausible deniability as to why he's not in the majors, but you're sort of getting to the point where once he's fully healthy, once he's playing the field, there's no reason to not have him in the majors. No. And I don't think that Rafaela is showing you enough to say that, he's being blocked.
No.
I know it's not on the rundown officially, but I do think we should probably talk a little bit about Casas, because we did talk about him last week, having kind of rough defense at first. And what did everyone think of Tristan Casas' week this week?
That's an improvement for sure.
Some improvement,
right?
Some improvement. He's been on the bench for my fantasy team for a bit, which is kind of sad since he's named after him.
Yeah, I think that it's been sort of weird because Romy Gonzalez has been playing also excellent. And I think when we were talking about Hamilton maybe ending up having to go down, I think Romy Gonzalez is also sort of making that case because, they feel at least a little bit okay with moving Romy around the infield. Yeah. And he's proving that he is pretty good.
Yeah.
Romy's a good defender. He has he kind of, stole home plate depending on, who you talk to. Yeah, and he's hitting the ball well, especially against left-handed pitching. So
yeah, and my fiance thinks that he's very handsome without the mustache, it turns out.
But it took all his power.
I don't know, but she was like, "Who's that?" I was like, "That's Romy." She's like, "Wow, he looks great without the mustache." I was like, "Okay, well, now I know."
I hate to tell you this, Adam. Your fiance is wrong.
I thought it was an impressive mustache. I will say that, but apparently he just looks better without it. This is coming from someone who's marrying someone who has never not had a beard for a relationship. So, yeah, say what you will about that. But yeah, Romy has been playing great, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is spelling less playing time for Casas, because Casas.
I think it's pretty clear that Cora does not trust Casas against left-handed pitching anymore. You wish that he could have gotten some. I think that Sunday would have been, and even the second game Saturday would have been great opportunities for him to feel more comfortable against left-handed pitching, the way that those pitchers went. But you understand what Cora is doing. But he's also not going to get a chance to prove to Cora that he should get that playing time if Gonzalez is getting every start against lefties.
Yeah. I don't think that coming into the season, though, there was any type of thought process that Casas wasn't going to be the everyday first baseman or be, against lefties too. I think that this is something that Romy's really played his way into at this point, and Casas has sort of played his way out of, I guess, is one way to put it, or at least just not proven himself enough. And I think that unfortunately the defensive miscues have really also, I think, put kind of his first baseman of the future kind of into limbo, because he has not played a great first base next year. Yeah. I know you kind of said that last week, especially because you're the only one of us who watched the entire documentary. but yeah, I mean, it is looking much more questionable than I would have thought possible. Even just like 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah. There's a team that has always loved him.
The team of Maddie.
Well, yes. The Marlins wanted him for Jesus Luzardo last season. And Alcantara is just hanging out.
I think Jesus Luzardo and Alcantara are two very different pitchers. I think that maybe you take Casas and Luzardo, maybe that's a deal that could be made, but I doubt the Marlins are just going to say, all right, let's do it 1 for 1.
No, it won't be 1 for 1, no, but I think that he will be the centerpiece of that deal. They love him.
Well, he's a local guy. Yeah, he grew up, outside of Miami.
Okay, I could see it. Speaks a little Spanish. Could talk to the community there. That maybe.
And
it could be interesting.
Who cares if he goes down there and is weird? Like, not a lot of people are paying attention. He's not going to deal with the media scrutiny that he's going to deal with in Boston.
Yeah. I guess like the issue is that if he is like, he needs to build a lot more trade value at this point.
Yes.
Because I think that the Marlins could love him so much, and it's not going to make a difference because
there's nothing
their quote unquote fans, are going to be like, this is a terrible,
right.
There'd be a revolt. So you would need to, he needs to prove something. And it'll be interesting to watch because he hasn't done it yet for sure.
I think he might be on the path though. Those home runs were encouraging.
I mean, a part of me wonders if he's still dealing with, lingering pain from his crazy injury. Gunnar Henderson also strained his oblique, and he's gotten off to a rocky start as well. Yep. I mean, granted, his injury wasn't as severe as Tristan's, but it makes you wonder.
Yeah. I think there's the idea that maybe the injury is playing into it, either pain-wise or, the injury from tearing the cartilage is playing into it mentally for him. I think that there is a chance that when you're so strong that you've torn the cartilage out from, between your ribs, that there's a chance that, that sticks in your mind and, plays with it a little bit.
And when there's a car crash inside your body.
Yeah, I mean, that's on some, Bo Jackson type stuff right there. So yeah, I mean, it was, I can see that. I could see that being an issue, but if that is the issue, then only, more playing time and consistent reps is going to get him kind of over that hurdle, proving to himself that he's not going to re-injure it. So hopefully as the season goes on, you're right, these home runs are a good beacon for what's to come.
Yeah.
Any other subjects you guys want to touch on before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think we've covered pretty much everything that was on my list.
I know we covered everything in the rundown because I wrote it. So
yeah, just two little things for struggling players. I think Tanner Houck needs to grow his whatever facial hair he had last year, where he kind of looked like the snowman from the Rudolph movie.
Burl Ives?
Burl Ives, yes.
Amazing.
Like Burl Ives again.
Maddie, how much Dayquil have you had today?
Only like 4.
Amazing.
Then Casas, he just needs to start screaming during his at-bats.
Yeah.
That might help him. Like I will say energy.
I will say listening to the radio overlay instead of the Nesson commentary was very illuminating for the Red Sox because you hear a lot in the radio broadcast. And Red Sox players have very dirty mouths, it turns out. There is a lot of yelling of profanities that the radio broadcasters then have to pretend like they didn't hear or be like, oops.
He called that a ball.
It was really funny to listen to and to watch. Really turn my head a few times at least.
My mom always says, I bet your mother's proud of that.
Yeah, I think Russ Snyder in particular, really, he is like very hard on himself. Anytime he strikes out, he has some really loud exclamations.
I think it was last Sunday. He got rung up on a pitch that was definitely a ball, and he never addressed the umpire to his face, but the hot mics for Nesson picked it up, and the entire walk back to the dugout was just riddled with profanities.
Yeah, I mean, that might be something that Nesson has to kind of, has to start rolling with a little bit more. Like mute the hot mics when Russ Snyder's coming back to the bench kind of thing, because it does seem like that might actually be kind of a real issue there.
Yeah.
I know that the FCC is lenient sometimes with what hot mics pick up, but at some point I think they have to be like, come on, guys, this is a trend.
It was
You
20
could have
F words in
anticipated
the
that
second
one.
inning.
Yeah. But yeah, so I agree. It seems like Russ Snyder is yelling quite a bit, and he is hitting well. So
Keep it up.
Yeah,
Do it,
Casas has got to get in on that.
Yeah,
get in on the yelling. Anything else, Maddie?
That was it.
Okay.
You sounded so defeated. Like, let's just wrap this up.
Well, we hope Maddie feels better for next week.
Absolutely.
And we'll be back next week.
Yeah, as always, make sure that you subscribe and follow on all the different audio platforms and on YouTube. And, hit us up in the comments. We'll respond positively. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening to the Talk Sox podcast.